Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Gadis Ariandita Hera from 5B, and I'm going to talk about the story of Prophet Muhammad. Abu al-Qasim Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abd al-Muttalib bin Hashim, otherwise known as the Prophet Muhammad, was born into great privilege around 570. He was given the name Muhammad, which means the praised one. His father Abdullah had died before his birth. Accordingly, he and his mother Aminah had to be looked after by the grandfather Abdul Muttalib. He was brought up by his grandfather Abd al-Muttalib, who also died 2 years later. He was then placed in the care of Abu Talib, Muhammad's uncle, and the father of Ali, Muhammad's cousin. Later in life, Muhammad would repay this kindness by taking Ali into his household and giving his daughter Fatima to him in marriage. The child Muhammad was suckled by a countrywoman who lived in a place near Ta'if. His sense of fairness and justice were so revered that the people of Mecca often went to him for arbitration and knew him as Al-Amin, the trusted one. His striking appearance is the subject of countless poems in various languages. Muhammad first preached his message to the members of his family, then to a few friends, and finally, 3 years after the advent of the revelation, to the public at large. The first to accept Muhammad's call to become Muslims were Khadijah, Ali, Zaid bin al-Harith, who was like a son to the Prophet, and Abu Bakr, a venerable member of the Meccan community who was a close friend of the Prophet. Besides his family and friends, a number of prominent Meccans embraced Islam. In 619, Muhammad was greatly saddened by the death of two people who were especially close to him, Khadijah and his uncle Abu Talib. The death of Abu Talib, Muhammad's protector, created a much more difficult situation for him and for the young Islam community in Mecca. In or around 621, a delegation from Yathrib, a city north of Mecca, contacted Muhammad, and having heard of his sense of justice and power of leadership, invited him to go to their city and become their leader. In 630 till 631, embassies from all over the Arabian Peninsula arrived in Medina to accept Islam, and by the time the most of Arabia save from the north had united under the religion's banner. Finally, in 632, Muhammad made the first Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca, Al-Hajj, which remains the model to this day for the millions of Muslims who make the Hajj each year. At that time, he delivered his celebrated farewell sermon, and the last verse of the Quran was revealed. After the conflict with Mecca was finally settled, Muhammad took his first true Islamic pilgrimage to that city, and in March 632, he delivered his last sermon at Mount Ararat. Muhammad, who had been considering another expedition to the north, suddenly fell ill and died 3 days later on June 8, 632 at the age of 62, and was buried at Al-Masjid An-Nabawi, the mosque of the Prophet, one of the first mosques built by Muhammad in Medina. According to Islamic norms that he established, his body was washed by his family, especially by Ali, and buried in his house adjacent to the Mosque of Medina. His tomb remains the holiest place in Islam after the Kaaba. It is visited by millions of pilgrims annually. So guys, that is all for me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.